So we finally got a little bit of activity in the wheat markets. Couple of things that are in play. First off, the US dollar has been a little bit weaker over the past week. Conversely, the Canadian dollar has been stronger. And that strength in the Canadian dollar is reflected in weaker Canadian basis levels. But at least a weaker US dollar does make US wheat a little bit more attractive to world buyers. So there's been a bid underneath the market as the US dollar weakens off a little bit. But maybe more important is that over the past few days, I mean, people are getting a little bit concerned about dryness in the hard wheat area. Very dry, pretty warm. There get to be concerns that the crop's going to come out of dormancy too early, start to green up, and then all of a sudden get hit with, with cold temperatures as we, revert back to winter. So there are, increasing concerns in the market about the shape of that hard wheat crop, and that spurred a bit of a rally in Kansas City and Chicago to some degree. It should be noted that there's been very little in the way of a rally in Minneapolis because Minneapolis isn't where the issue is. And in fact, when you start looking ahead to this coming spring, the expectation is that we'll see an increase in spring wheat acres in both Canada and the US. So what has been a pretty wide spread between Minneapolis and Kansas City has narrowed in a little bit, mostly on account of Kansas City buying, Chicago buying, where there is a spec short that that can get chased in a little bit. We expect that the market can try and get up into the 460 range in Kansas City and Chicago. Whether there's a leg up over and above that remains to be seen. Our guess is that that's probably a good exit point to put on some hedges. Minneapolis is still going to struggle because there's just we're going to see an increased acreage at least this coming spring. Whether that translates into an increased supply is remains to be seen. Next week, just so people understand, Monday morning, February the 5th, Stats Canada will be putting out their December 31st stocks and all positions report. Our expectations are that there'll probably be around 19 million tons of wheat and maybe 4 3/4 million tons of durum around, so a total of 23 3/4 all wheat, if you will. If it's over 24, that would be a bit of a surprise. If it's under 23.5, that would be a bit of a surprise as well. It should be noted that the 19 million tons of bread wheat, if you will, would probably be the third highest December 31st bread wheat number in the past 20 years, only behind the DEES 13 and DEES 14 years when we had the big crops, horrible winters, and the railways kind of having issues. So our plan here is at least on the CPS buckets to be a bit of a sellers as we get up into the 460 range on the March futures. Minneapolis, maybe it catches a bid in sympathy and can maybe get up to 6 1/4 or 630, but there's no story in Minneapolis that's going to set it up for a 50-cent run or even a 25-cent run like we've seen in Kansas City.